Hurricane Erin never made landfall in North Carolina, but that didn't matter to the hundreds of threatened sea turtle nests along the state's barrier islands. While the storm spared buildings and infrastructure, it delivered a devastating blow to one of nature's most vulnerable creatures. We're talking about more than half of 43 loggerhead turtle nests completely destroyed on Topsail Island alone. 8 out of 10 nests wiped out on Emerald Isle. Hundreds of fully developed baby turtles that were just days away from hatching, gone. This is the hidden cost of Hurricane Erin that no one saw coming. To understand what happened here, we need to first grasp just how unique Hurricane Erin really was. This wasn't your typical Atlantic storm. Erin became a massive hurricane, twice the size of an average hurricane, stretching across more than 600 miles of ocean.
350 miles away, that huge wind field continues to agitate the ocean here, and this surf has just been relentlessly punishing the eastern seaboard.
The western edge of Hurricane Erin delivering coastal flooding and strong winds to the shores of North Carolina, hours before the massive storm finally began to move away from the U.S. Seaside homes enduring the onslaught of ocean water. And despite days spent shoring up important arteries like Highway 12, state transportation authorities kept bridges closed to ensure they'd withstand the weather.
We are worried about the next high tide cycle tonight and the tide cycle after that in the morning.
5 different species of sea turtles visit or nest on the Outer Banks. And this video shows powerful waves pushing through the habitats designed to protect them. And as waves pounded the shores of Virginia Beach, Jeremy Williams and his family tried to make the best out of the bad weather.
Know before you go, right?
Prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Exactly.
35 million people are under coastal flood advisories up and down the East Coast. Tom Hansen is on New York's Long Island, where we're seeing extreme surf conditions.
Even with Erin, more than 200.
It was what meteorologists call a Cape Verde hurricane, one of those monsters that forms near the islands off the west coast of Africa and crosses thousands of miles of warm Atlantic waters. These are some of the most dangerous storms to threaten North America, and Erin was no exception. But here's what made Erin so unusual. It managed to thread the needle through the Atlantic, staying just far enough offshore to avoid making landfall while being close enough to unleash its fury on the coastline. The storm's massive wind field churned up the Atlantic from Bermuda to southern New England, creating dangerous conditions across a 1,000-mile stretch of coastline. Highway 12 near Hatteras Island was cut off by overwashing waves, and coastal communities from Virginia to New Jersey faced flooding concerns despite the storm remaining hundreds of miles out to sea. The storm pounded North Carolina's Outer Banks with relentless waves and winds, creating what experts call a perfect storm for ecological disaster.
You can even see behind me this mound that's really kind of accumulated over the past couple hours, but check out my pants actually just minutes before you came to me. What we're experiencing right now is the high tide really starting to come in. I'm standing over here where the stairs are, and this is how high you can see. Look at all that sea foam. I have enough to fill up your coffee if you need some cold foam today, but that shows how high that this is getting. And let's check out over here. When we talk about that high tide coming in, you can see it's really coming up to the dunes and that vegetation right there. So what is interesting about this high tide right now? Well, this is going to be the biggest high tide throughout this Erin event that we've seen. And what that does is it brings in a lot of that winds and the water as well. So again, you're seeing remnants of all that water and possible flooding that could be happening south of us. We already know that on Hatteras Island, they've already seen some flooding on their major roadway. So again, we have more of this coming in. This is where we're going to see a lot of those impacts of some more of that flooding. But check out the surf out here as well. So many waves. It's been very intense. It's been churning all day. And really, this has probably been, all day, this has been the angriest it has been in the past few days. You can see again, all of this sea foam, even this big mound right here. This is all from a lot of that loose sand, and you can even hear that wind. All of that loose.
The Outer Banks are essentially sand dunes sticking out of the ocean just a few feet above sea level, making them incredibly vulnerable to erosion and storm surge. Sand was accumulating in massive mounds along the beaches. Sea foam was reaching the stairs of coastal buildings. And the incoming high tide combined with intense winds created conditions that felt, as one observer described it, like Niagara Falls. The sensory assault was overwhelming, sand pelting exposed skin, salt spray filling the air, and the roar of 10 to 20-foot waves crashing ashore. When Erin's massive waves began crashing ashore, they didn't just bring water, they brought destruction to some of the most important sea turtle nesting grounds on the East Coast.
Away at that shoreline, overtopping some of those dunes, overtopping and cutting off some of the roadways and even some of the main arteries there on Highway 12 closer to Hatteras Island. Here, the waves are just a little bit smaller, but you look at them from this vantage point, it certainly doesn't look that way. They haven't come down from where we've seen them. The tide will be coming up over here over the next couple of hours, and the wave run-up will be probably all the way to the seawall here. But generally speaking, it's just been people who are either on vacation or locals that are coming here to watch these impressive waves roll in. Certainly coastal flooding is going to be an issue, as it always is here in Virginia Beach, in Norfolk, and in the Hampton Roads area. So they're certainly worried about that in the next high tide cycle coming in the next couple of hours.
Ask you this, how rare is it for a storm that's going to stay hundreds of miles offshore to stir up this much?
Waves were eating away at the shoreline, overtopping dunes that had protected these beaches for decades, and fundamentally altering the landscape where sea turtles had nested for millennia. Terry Meyer, conservation director for the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Rescue and Rehabilitation Center, had been monitoring turtle nests on Topsail Island all summer. What she discovered after Erin passed was unlike anything she had seen in her years of conservation work. More than half of the 43 loggerhead turtle nests on the island were completely lost. The storm surge had raised the water table so dramatically that when rescue teams reached the nests, they found the eggs literally sitting in water. I didn't anticipate the water table being so high and the eggs being just literally sitting in water when we got to them, Meyer explained. I don't think I've seen that on such a wide scale. The devastation wasn't limited to one location. About 33 miles northeast on Emerald Isle, the picture was equally grim. Dale Backer, program coordinator and president of the Emerald Isle Sea Turtle Patrol, watched as 8 of their 10 remaining loggerhead turtle nests were likely destroyed by the storm. Meanwhile, from Manasquan, New Jersey to Virginia Beach, beaches were closed for swimming as 15-foot waves crashed into rocks and created life-threatening rip currents. Even surfers know to stay away from these treacherous waters when conditions become this extreme. To put this in perspective, these weren't just any turtle eggs. These were loggerhead sea turtles, a species that's already threatened in the United States due to fishing bycatch and habitat loss. Loggerheads are North Carolina's primary sea turtle species, and they don't nest every year. These magnificent creatures, known for their large heads and powerful jaw muscles, only return to nest every 2 to 3 years. When they do nest, it's between May and August, and each nest contains about 100 precious eggs. The timing of Hurricane Erin couldn't have been worse. Many of these nests were in their final stages of incubation, with baby turtles fully developed and ready to hatch. In fact, one nest on Emerald Isle managed to hatch just Wednesday night, with the baby turtles making their desperate dash to the ocean just as the storm was approaching. Another nest survived because it was positioned higher up in the dunes, out of reach of the storm surge. But for the vast majority, there was no escape. The emotional toll on the conservation volunteers who had spent months monitoring these nests is immeasurable. These are people who dedicate their entire summers to protecting sea turtle nests, checking on them daily, marking their locations, and preparing for the magical moment when hundreds of tiny hatchlings emerge and make their first journey to the sea. Instead, they found themselves digging up nests filled with dead, fully developed baby turtles that would never see the ocean. When you're digging up a nest that's got 100 dead, fully developed, ready-to-go hatchlings, I'm old and jaded, but that can be pretty tough to handle, Meyer said, her voice heavy with the weight of what she had witnessed. For volunteers who walk the 26-mile stretch of Topsail Island Beach every summer, monitoring each precious nest, the loss is heartbreaking on a personal level. But the destruction goes beyond the immediate tragedy. Each of these nests represented the future of the species. With about 100 eggs per nest, the storms destroyed potentially thousands of baby loggerheads that would have contributed to the next generation. While Meyer noted that in the big picture, the destruction of dozens of nests won't have a significant impact on the species as a whole, the local impact is devastating. What makes this disaster even more frustrating for conservationists is how little they could do to prevent it. Both the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Rescue and Rehabilitation Center and the Emerald Isle Sea Turtle Patrol tried to prepare for the storm. They removed signs, stakes, and fencing that could be washed away or cause problems for the turtles. but North Carolina has strict laws designed to keep the sea turtle hatching process as natural as possible. These regulations, while well-intentioned, severely limit what conservation groups can do to protect nests from natural disasters. The only circumstances under which they can obtain state permission to relocate a nest is if they know it has already hatched, or if they can see the tide actively washing eggs out to sea. By the time Hurricane Erin's storm surge reached the nests, it was already too late. It's stressful, and of course it's not something you ever get used to, but I think we all have a science mindset that this is nature and this is what's going to happen, Baker explained, trying to find acceptance in the face of such loss. The volunteers understand that natural disasters are part of the ecosystem, but that doesn't make witnessing the destruction any easier. Interestingly, Hurricane Erin's impact on sea turtle nests might actually be less severe than other natural phenomena. Baker noted that king tides, naturally occurring, exceptionally high tides caused by the moon's peak gravitational influence, typically cause more nest losses than tropical storms or hurricanes. However, the timing of Erin caught everyone off guard. The team wasn't expecting another destructive tide cycle until September, making the hurricane's impact even more surprising. The broader context of Hurricane Erin makes this ecological disaster even more remarkable. The storm managed to cause significant environmental damage while causing virtually no damage to human infrastructure. Erin never made landfall, and despite being twice the size of an average hurricane, it caused no widespread damage to buildings, roads, or power lines. The storm essentially threaded the needle between causing human catastrophe and environmental destruction, sparing one while
see those waves crashing into the rocks here at Manasquan Inlet Beach down the Jersey Shore. Some of these waves could be as high as 15 feet today. Now, the beach is pretty much empty, but there are some people out here taking photos of these massive waves. But here in Manasquan and at many Jersey Shore beaches, there is a ban on swimming in the ocean. Erin is creating life-threatening rip currents, rough surf, and as you said, gusty winds. You would normally see boats out here, but none to be found today. Surfers are even staying out of the water. We could also see some coastal flooding down the Jersey Shore. And later this evening at high tide is when we'll find out if some of these communities down the Jersey Shore could see some water in their communities, Jerica.
Amazing, Christine, to see the impact that can have so far away from the
devastating the other. Local business owners along the Outer Banks, like those who had weathered over 30 hurricanes, described waves much bigger than anticipated, but the critical infrastructure damage was limited to isolated incidents, some downed telephone poles, water service interruptions, and a handful of condemned houses along coastal roads. This highlights a critical point about how we measure the impact of natural disasters. Media coverage and government resources typically focus on human casualties and property damage, which is understandable and important. But Hurricane Erin demonstrates that storms can have profound ecological impacts that often go unnoticed by the general public. While news reports celebrated that the hurricane caused minimal damage to infrastructure, hundreds of threatened sea turtles were losing their lives just beneath the sand. The loggerhead sea turtle's life cycle makes events like this particularly significant. These ancient mariners can live for decades, but they face numerous challenges throughout their lives. As hatchlings, they must navigate from their beach nests to the ocean, avoiding predators and artificial lights that can disorient them. Those that make it to the water face years of oceanic journeys, growing and maturing in the vast Atlantic. The females that survive to adulthood will eventually return to the beaches where they were born to lay their own eggs, continuing a cycle that has persisted for millions of years. Every nest destroyed by Hurricane Erin represents not just the immediate loss of 100 potential hatchlings, but the loss of decades of future reproductive potential. Some of those baby turtles might have grown up to become breeding adults, returning to North Carolina beaches to lay thousands of eggs over their lifetimes. The ripple effects of this single storm will be felt in loggerhead populations for generations to come. The destruction also raises important questions about climate change and sea turtle conservation. As ocean temperatures rise and storm patterns change, hurricanes are becoming more intense and unpredictable. Sea level rise is already threatening nesting beaches around the world, and more powerful storms could make events like Hurricane Erin's turtle nest destruction more common in the future. Conservationists are now grappling with how to adapt their strategies to protect sea turtle nests in an era of increasingly severe weather. Some are advocating for more flexible regulations that would allow for emergency nest relocations when major storms are predicted. Others are exploring technological solutions, such as artificial incubation facilities that could serve as backup for nests threatened by severe weather. The volunteers who witnessed Hurricane Erin's destruction aren't giving up. Despite the heartbreak of finding hundreds of dead hatchlings, they're already planning for next year's nesting season. They'll continue their patrols, marking and monitoring new nests, hoping that the next storm season will be kinder to the ancient turtles they've dedicated their lives to protecting. As climate change continues to intensify storms and alter coastal environments, the story of Hurricane Erin and North Carolina's sea turtles serves as a powerful reminder that natural disasters don't just threaten human communities, they can devastate entire ecosystems in ways that are often invisible to the public eye. The next time a hurricane spares human infrastructure while staying offshore, it's worth remembering the hidden casualties that might be occurring just beneath the sand on our beaches. For now, the conservation teams on Topsail Island and Emerald Isle are remaining optimistic, as Bequer put it. They understand that this is part of nature's cycle, even as they mourn the loss of hundreds of baby turtles that will never make their first journey to the sea. Their dedication to protecting these ancient creatures continues storm after storm, season after season, in one of conservation's most challenging and heartbreaking front lines.